imagine you've just paid this high-end executive coach thousands of dollars, right?
Hmm.
And you sit down in their super sleek glass-walled office, and you are fully expecting them to, hand you this slick 10-step flowchart to fix your procrastination or like boost your quarterly productivity.
Oh, absolutely. That's the standard expectation.
Right. But instead, they look at you across the table and they ask about um, the unresolved tension holding in your fascia
Mm,
or the creative wisdom sitting in your pelvis.
yeah.
You would probably think you walked into the wrong room. I mean,
You'd probably walk right back out. It would definitely be a shock to the system for most corporate professionals
totally.
because, we are incredibly conditioned to view human behavior as something that can just be, like, neatly categorized into a spreadsheet.
Right, exactly. We treat humans like cars. We assume we could just bring ourselves into a mechanic, point to the broken part, get a concrete action plan, and just drive out fixed.
Just swap out the spark plugs and you're good to go.
Yeah. Set a goal, track the metrics, hit the target.
Yeah.
It's so binary. But then you step back and look at actual human beings, and suddenly that flow chart it just bursts into flames.
It really does.
Because we aren't simple machines. We are these complex, chaotic, beautifully messy systems. And when we try to force that complexity into a cookie-cutter process, it almost always fails.
It does fail, and often spectacularly, which is, well, it's the absolute definition of the paradigm shift we're looking at today. We are really moving away from that mechanical view of the human experience.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, for you listening, we're looking at this fascinating visual map of the bwise intelligence system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's alongside this foundational document detailing the 9 principles of the WISE coaching framework, which was developed by Dr. Suzanne Henwood back in December 2025.
Yeah, a really pivotal piece of work.
It is. And the entire mission of our deep dive today is to explore this new paradigm in coaching. One that, completely ditches the simple formulas and that relentless goal setting to actually embrace the full reality of being human in 2026.
And to even begin understanding this framework, we really have to look at how it redefines the starting line.
Right.
Because traditional coaching, it almost always starts with the question, what do you want to achieve?
Always. What's the goal?
Exactly. But the bwise framework argues that before we can even begin to talk about growth or achieving goals or changing habits,
We have to establish the absolute prerequisite for change. Because we naturally want to jump straight to the finish line and fix our problem.
we're impatient.
Right. But bwise insists we start at the literal beating center of the human experience.
Yeah, if you look at the center of the bwise visual map, radiating outward is what they call the safety foundation.
Okay.
And inside that central circle, there are 3 very intentional mantras. I am safe, I belong, I can be me. Yeah, and those encompass the core identity, which the map labels I the self, featuring the statements I am, I choose, I evolve. Safety is literally the first foundational principle of WISE.
It's striking, honestly, because safety isn't usually step 1 in a corporate coaching manual.
No, it's usually never. But the framework relies heavily on deep biological science here, because when we don't feel safe, as humans, we just automatically shut down.
Right.
We revert back to our core familiar survival strategies. And the really crucial part here is that we revert to them even if those familiar habits are completely unpleasant or, destructive to our lives.
Even if we hate the habit, we go back to it because it's what we know.
Exactly. The text actually quotes Dr. Stephen Porges, who is the developer of polyvagal theory, to explain this whole mechanism.
Right. Polyvagal theory comes up a lot in trauma discussions, but let's
Yeah.
break that down for the coaching context for, the listener.
Sure. So Porges essentially mapped out how our autonomic nervous system is just constantly scanning the environment for cues of safety or danger.
Just running in the background all the time.
All the time. And he states in the text, safety transforms our biology, raising oxytocin and vagal tone, lowering cholesterol, softening the fascia, creating the physiological foundation for recovery.
Okay, so it's like trying to upgrade your computer's operating system while it's actively fending off a malware attack.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Like, it just won't install.
Yeah.
The system is too busy trying to survive to even think about downloading a new productivity feature.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. You cannot force an upgrade on a panicked system. And that braking system in the body is tied to what Porges calls vagal tone.
Right.
The vagus nerve is like this superhighway connecting your brain to your major organs, like your heart, your gut, your lungs.
Okay.
So high vagal tone means your body can quickly calm down after a stressor, but low vagal tone means you just stay stuck in that high alert fight or flight state.
Wait, softening the fascia, lowering cholesterol. I have to push back here for a second.
Yeah.
Because if safety is the absolute foundation, how does a coach actually make a client safe? I mean, you can't just look at an anxious executive and tell them, hey, feel safe now, and expect their vagal tone to improve and their biology to just transform.
No, definitely not. And it sounds wild to a purely logical brain, but it's pure biology. A coach doesn't just tell you to be safe,
Right?
because you can't language someone into a state of physiological regulation. The framework explicitly states that safety is multidimensional. It has to be co-created in the moment
Co-created. How?
through what they call co-regulation. Coaches do this by adjusting their own tone of voice, their pacing, their breathing, and just their overall physical presence in the room.
Oh, wow.
And then the client's nervous system subconsciously mirrors that calm.
Oh. Yeah.
Because if the coach is secretly stressed about their next appointment or something, the client's nervous system will pick up on that dysregulation immediately. Exactly. Which is why the coach has to be deeply trauma-informed. But even more importantly, the framework demands that the coach is deeply invested in doing their own inner work.
They have to fix their own malware first.
Yes, they have to be aware of their own impact in the room. You just cannot provide a regulatory anchor for someone else if you are fundamentally unmoored yourself.
Okay, so let's say the coach has done their work.
Yeah.
The co-regulation is happening, and that safety operating system is successfully installed.
Mm-hmm.
The malware attack is neutralized. What exactly is the coach interacting with next? Because if we aren't just a logical brain trying to hit a quarterly sales target, what else is in the room?
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer scale of how bwise maps human intelligence.
It's huge.
The visual map illustrates that we aren't just one localized intelligence residing in our skulls. We are a dynamic, interconnected ecosystem of 12 distinct intelligences.
12.
12. And they are all connected by a central unifying mechanism, which is breath.
12 intelligences.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a massive expansion from this standard IQ and EQ we always hear about.
It really is.
Let's explore this ecosystem, because the visual divides these into an inner ring and an outer ring, right?
Yeah, so the inner ring starts with a few we might actually recognize. You have the head, handling our thoughts, beliefs, and conscious perspectives.
Sure, the classic one.
Right. Then the heart, which processes emotions, compassion, and our relational connection.
Okay.
And the gut, which is where we process intuition, instinct, and that deep inner knowing.
So those three, the head, heart, gut, they feel relatively familiar in modern psychology and somatic therapy. But this inner ring gets far more granular than that.
Oh, it goes much deeper. The map also includes the autonomic nervous system, which we just discussed as the arbiter of regulation and stress.
Right.
It includes the pelvis, representing our center of creativity, sexuality, identity, and personal power. Then there is the fascia, holding connection, memory, adaptation, and resilience. And finally, the body as a whole, so our physical structure, movement, and our sensory processing.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you at the fascia.
Okay, sure.
Because coaching my fascia sounds incredibly abstract.
Yeah.
For anyone who isn't an anatomist, what exactly is fascia and how on earth does it hold memory?
So think of fascia like a tight, continuous, full-body suit of saran wrap.
Saran wrap.
Yeah, that lives just under your skin, and it encases every single muscle, organ, and nerve in your body.
Okay.
When you experience chronic stress or physical or emotional trauma, that saran wrap physically thickens, tightens, and binds up to protect you. It literally changes its physical structure based on your lived experiences.
Oh, so when someone says they hold their stress in their shoulders, they're often talking about their fascia physically tightening up like shrink wrap.
Yes, exactly.
You can't outthink a tight physical web. You have to actually work with the body to release it.
Which is why the bwise framework has a core principle called embodied and integrative. Coaching must be to and from the body.
That makes so much sense.
Right. If your fascia is locked up in a defensive holding pattern from an old trauma, trying to logically talk your brain into feeling relaxed is just a waste of time.
It's like talking to a brick wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The body holds wisdom in its own right, and verbal language is just one highly limited form of communication.
Okay, I'm tracking with the physical body stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but looking at the outer ring of this map, it lists environment, social, spiritual, and quantum intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And the map defines quantum as possibility, potential, and the unseen field. Now, let's be real. Tapping into quantum intelligence during a coaching session. Sounds like a whole lot of abstract jargon. How does a coach practically use that?
That is a very fair skepticism, honestly. It's important to clarify that bwise isn't teaching clients literal quantum physics here.
Okay.
In this context, quantum refers to nonlinear potential and the systemic, unseen forces that influence us. Think about an executive who is completely stuck on a massive career transition.
Right.
They have their pro and con lists, they've talked it to death with their logical head intelligence, and they are just frozen.
They've reached the absolute limit of what verbal logic can solve.
Precisely. So a bwise coach won't just ask more logical questions. They might notice the client's breathing is shallow or their physical posture is collapsed.
Yeah.
They might actually ask the client to stop talking entirely. Tune in to the physical sensation in their gut and imagine stepping into a completely different field of possibility.
Oh, wow.
Like an unseen future where the problem is already solved. It's really about shifting out of that rigid, linear thinking and opening up to emergent, non-obvious solutions.
So you're taking data from the whole system, synthesizing somatic cues, emotional states, and broad systemic possibilities, not just the part of the brain that formulates sentences.
Yes. And this ties directly into another foundational principle, which is wise. The framework doesn't focus on aggressive goal setting, it focuses on cultivating wisdom. And wisdom requires integrated discernment across all forms of knowing. Mental, emotional, spiritual, somatic, all 12 intelligences have a voice at the table.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. We now have this picture of a profoundly complex individual, a dynamic ecosystem of 12 intelligences wrapped in physical fascia, guided by an autonomic nervous system processing data on a somatic, cognitive, and quantum level.
It's a lot.
It is. How does a coach sit across from this complex adaptive system without just, throwing their hands up in the air? How do you even begin to communicate?
Well, this brings us to a foundational concept in the bwise framework called personal phenomenology.
Personal phenomenology, that is a very heavy academic term.
It is, yeah. But the mechanism behind it is deeply practical. Phenomenology is all about subjective lived experience.
Okay.
It's the absolute acceptance that the world isn't an objective reality that we all agree on. Your conscious experience of existing is entirely unique to you. It's how you describe something, the meaning you assign to it, and the narrative you build around it based on your specific 12 intelligences.
So instead of a coach saying, I have the objective, correct truth about how you should fix your life, the coach says, let's explore the unique reality you are currently experiencing.
Exactly. And that completely changes the power dynamic in the room. The focus is entirely client-centered, which links directly to their humanistic principle.
Okay.
Under this framework, the coach holds unconditional positive regard for the client's value and capability. They aren't trying to fix a broken machine.
And the text points out something I found to be a massive aha moment. It says, we do not see problems or obstacles. We focus on adaptive survival strategies.
Yes.
That reframe is huge. Because if I have a habit of, say, procrastinating, traditional coaching sees that as a bug in the software to be squashed, a problem.
A flaw.
But this humanistic approach sees it as an adaptation.
It reframes the question entirely. Instead of asking, why are you so lazy? The coach asks, what is your procrastination trying to protect you from?
Wow.
Because your system developed procrastination to survive something. Perhaps a fear of failure, or maybe a deeply dysregulated nervous system that desperately needs rest.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the client's agency and inner potential removes the shame from the coaching dynamic.
But the framework goes even further than just observing the client. It introduces this idea of the collaborative we. There's the coach, which is the I. There's the client, the you. But then there is the interconnectivity, the actual space between the two people.
Yeah, the framework suggests that the space between actually changes the phenomenology for both individuals. It's an active living entity in the room.
It's less like a chemical reaction where two inert elements just mix into a predictable compound. Yeah. And more like two jazz musicians improvising on stage. You can look at the saxophone player and you can look at the drummer, but you can't predict the song they're going to create just by analyzing their instruments separately.
Oh, I love that.
The music only exists in the real-time shared space between them. The partnership itself generates the wisdom.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The bwise framework anchors this in the relational principle. Authentic connection, Unconditional positive regard and genuine care are not just nice theoretical concepts, they are the fundamental mechanisms of change.
The driver of the whole thing.
Exactly. The document actually cites research by Stubb from 2018, noting that a strong therapeutic alliance is one of the most important predictors of positive treatment outcomes.
Because if we are dealing with a person's deepest physiological safety and their subjective reality, that alliance is make or break.
Absolutely. It requires immense calibration and deep trust. And crucially, it requires immediately repairing any ruptures in connection. Yeah, so if a coach misinterprets a client or pushes too hard and triggers a defensive response, they have to address it right then and there. They have to repair the music, to use your analogy.
Right.
Because if the relationship ruptures, the safety is lost.
And if safety is lost, the vagal tone drops, the fascia tightens up, the malware defenses go back online, and all that deep somatic work just grinds to a halt. Every intelligence impacts the other. Every connection matters.
Which brings us to a really vital question. Because this deep, collaborative, highly attuned inner work doesn't happen in a sterile laboratory.
Right. It happens in the real world.
Yeah.
And the world in 2026 is, frankly, chaotic.
Extremely.
We're dealing with unprecedented technological upheavals, economic shifts, global anxieties. How does a framework this focused on internal ecosystems deal with the absolute chaos of external reality?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the bwise framework is incredibly clear-eyed about the state of the world. The text utilizes acronyms that perfectly describe our modern environment: VUCA and BANI.
Remind me, VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And BANI.
BANI stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible, wow. Yeah.
Whichever acronym you prefer, the underlying message is that our reality is profoundly dynamic and unknown.
Yeah.
Traditional coaching tries to fight this by creating rigid plans to force certainty. But the bwise approach is the exact opposite. They have a principle literally called embracing complexity, unknowing, and uncertainty.
Let's ground this in a real scenario for 2026. Say you have a client dealing with severe anxiety because their entire department is being restructured by AI.
Very common right now.
Right. And they don't know if they'll have a job in 6 months.
Yeah.
A traditional coach might try to aggressively upskill them or map out this rigid 5-year career plan to give them a false sense of control. How does a bwise coach handle that?
Well, a bwise coach recognizes that promising a foolproof career roadmap in a VUCA world is basically a lie. Instead, they hold space for not knowing. They would help that client regulate their nervous system, tune into the intuition in their gut, and process the grief in their heart.
Wow.
Allowing them to sit with the uncertainty without their logical brain spiraling into a total panic. They encourage exploring multiple perspectives with curiosity, rather than just locking onto one desperate, absolute way forward.
The text even mentions tapping into indigenous forms of knowledge and ancient DNA wisdom, right?
It does, yeah. It suggests that when the modern technological world is just incomprehensible, we can find deep grounding by reconnecting to the natural world.
Our environmental intelligence.
Exactly, and the ancestral resilience that's literally physically encoded in our bodies.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? In a modern world that is completely desperate for absolute certainties, that constantly sells us, 5-step quick fixes and guaranteed returns on investment, this framework is suggesting a radical alternative. It's saying that learning to sit comfortably with uncertainty while deeply exploring the unique 12 intelligence ecosystem of your own body and mind is actually the most pragmatic, resilient tool you can possibly develop.
Yeah.
Because when the flowchart burns up, your adaptability is literally all you have left.
And that resilience isn't cultivated just so you can hoard it for your own personal success either.
Right?
The final foundational principle of bwise is service-driven beyond IOR.
This part really zooms out on the macro impact of this work.
It does. The document notes that the global coaching industry is an absolute behemoth. It generated an estimated $5.34 billion in 2025, and it's projected to hit $9.5 billion by 2032.
That's a massive amount of money.
It's a highly lucrative space, which means it is incredibly susceptible to becoming purely self-serving.
Oh, we've all seen it. Coaching that just helps wealthy executives optimize their daily routines to extract more profit, completely divorced from the impact they have on the actual world.
bwise actively pivots away from that extraction mindset.
Hmm.
While they absolutely support sustainable businesses, their foundational focus is on what can be given back to the global community.
Okay.
It's about utilizing this deep, somatic, relational work to raise collective consciousness, wisdom, and care globally. It challenges coaches to look beyond the individual client and ask how this work positively contributes to society as a whole.
It treats coaching as a form of global service, taking this profoundly safe, attuned, embodied regulation and rippling it outwards to combat the anxiety of a frantic world.
Exactly.
Okay, we have covered some serious ground today.
Hmm.
Let's trace the journey we've just been on with Dr. Henwood's bwise framework.
We started at the literal core, recognizing that a trauma-informed, regulated foundation of physiological safety is the absolute prerequisite for change.
Without it, the body shuts down.
Right. From there, we expanded our view of human capacity into the 12 intelligences. We learned that we aren't just logical brains. Our heart, our gut, our deeply held fascia, and our connection to systemic quantum possibility all have a vital voice in how we process the world.
We then explored how a coach actually meets that complexity through personal phenomenology, ditching the concept of broken habits to respect the client's subjective reality and adaptive survival strategies. We looked at the collaborative we space, where genuine relational connection, like those improvising jazz musicians, generates the wisdom needed to move forward.
And finally, we zoomed out to see how sitting with unknowing prepares us for a chaotic, ban-I world, allowing us to serve the collective rather than just relentlessly optimizing ourselves.
So quite a journey.
It is. And there is one final note from Dr. Henwood's December 2025 document that provides crucial context for all of this.
Oh, her.
She specifically addresses the rapid rise of artificial intelligence in the coaching space.
Yeah, that's a huge topic.
She writes that as AI inevitably takes on more of a role in processing data and tracking goals, the bwise principles are intentionally designed to emphasize the humanity of coaching, ensuring it remains fit for purpose in 2026 and far beyond.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating thought for you to mull over. We are entering a world where AI can perfectly process all our behavioral habits. You can meticulously track our goal metrics and spit out the most highly optimized daily schedules in milliseconds. So what is left for us?
That's the big question.
Could it be that the messy, embodied, unknowable parts of our experience, the sudden intuition firing in our gut, the generations of resilience stored in our fascia, or the authentic, shared relational space that only exists when two breathing human beings sit in the room together?
Yeah.
Could that be the only true intelligence that retains its value in the future?
It raises the beautiful possibility that when we finally stop trying to operate like simple machines, we unlock the very thing that makes us irreplaceable.
The roadmap might be gone, but maybe we finally have the compass. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the beautifully complex world of the bwise coaching framework. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.